This morning's presentation is going to be 5-part dollar, 1-part Bailey. The enduring popularity of the yours truly Johnny Dollar serials. I'm Dr. Joe Webb, and I'm John Abbott. And seems you're popular after all.
We should stop while we're ahead.
Yes. Go. In 2 weeks, it will be the 70th anniversary of the introduction of the 5-part Johnny Dollar serials. October the 3rd, 1955, episode 1, The McCormick Matter. This was, put my other eyes on here for a second. This was introducing Bob Bailey, a multitude of other things, and with that, we're going to go right into the next slide.
Which is mine, yes. All right, so I've been dealing with a lot of reel-to-reel recordings and discs that were collected by our earliest pioneer collectors. Old-time radio researchers has been getting some collections of collectors who have passed on, or some very, very large collections, and we're starting to look through what those original reel-to-reel tapes were. And as we look at the patterns of these collectors in the 1960s, it's very clear they did not really like Johnny Dollar because it was too new. It was something that was just a few years ago. How could it be old-time radio? So they were looking to renew their childhood memories. Many of them were looking to get kids shows. There's very little interest in kids shows today, but they were really deeply involved in that. They loved having the big movie stars, shows like Lux Radio Theater and the 1940s era of suspense and the variety programs. They were interested in that. And you can tell in terms of the existing materials over these years, there are more missing yours truly Johnny Dollar after the 5-part serials than there are Suspense and Gunsmoke. And they were all on at the same time, and the collectors were recording air checks at the same time, but many of them were not recording Johnny Dollar. And we find this very, very curious in light of the surge in popularity that the Johnny Dollar has had today. But why would they want to listen to a serial? Serials are for soap operas. Serials are like Jack Armstrong. And then any kind of serial that they heard, like any soap opera, it's one plot lasting 5 or 6 years, right? So how could Johnny Dollar be any different than that? But it is. The other issue is, until the discs were found in the 1970s, we had Armed Forces Radio Service discs that were transferred, and they were in bad shape. So you had noisy programs, you really couldn't appreciate a lot of things about the series. So it was forgotten until the mid-1970s when the discs from the Pacific Pioneers of Broadcasting were started to be transferred. Those discs came from the CBS archives. They were given to that organization, and they started recording them, and people began to realize that those AFRS recordings, they were really bad. But these recordings that we're getting from network discs and network tapes, this is incredible, and it's only then that you start to get a feel for how different Bob Bailey's characterization was of the series. The internet channel is an interesting aspect of this because, sure, collectors started to understand Johnny Dollar once they got the discs and started to really like the series and had an attachment to Bob Bailey. But in speaking with Greg Bell, who's the host of that channel, this is now their most requested program. And I made a mistake of going on the 2019 Radio Spirits cruise. And, well, I didn't make a mistake, I had a good time. But one thing that was very interesting with that cruise, there were no collectors. There was only listeners to that channel. And they fell in love with Johnny Dollar once they heard it, because it's all broadcast in sequence, so you don't go, week after week. It could all be heard at the same time. And we even had a situation where a husband and wife were so in love with the Johnny Dollar series that this is almost like one of those O. Henry stories. They each bought each other the same CD set for Christmas. So they're just fascinated with the series.
Okay.
That's enough for me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Johnny Dollar originated in 1949 with Charles Russell, and the first run lasted until September of 1954. 232 episodes, 3 actors, 1 audition by Dick Powell. During the end of that run in 1952, they had their only Hooper rating. Back in those days, like Fred Allen, used to say, the worst thing that happened is to be caught with your Hooper down. They had a 6.3, and in 53, 54, it was 4.1 amongst the thrillers in the drama series.
I'd just like to put one thing in perspective here. These, like the number for suspense at 6.0, in 1949 it was like 3 times that size. So you could already see the erosion in the listenership of radio compared to television. But these were still very good numbers. But that's the perspective I needed to add there. Go ahead, sir.
Let's go on to the next slide. Thank you.
Oh, this is my slide.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I got Bill Paley's notebook, so I figured I'd put the page here because here's the things that they're dealing with. The listening patterns of the time of day are changing. Soap operas are still being listened to during the day, but in the big metro areas, television was being watched at night. And CBS had to figure out what to do with it because even though it was concentrated in the big metro areas, there were massive geographies that still did not have television yet. And radio was really, really important to them. So there was still a market there for it. The amount of time people listened to radio was going down. They were listening more in their vehicles. They were not listening as much as home. They had portable radios that they were listening to, so it was becoming much more personal. Instead of having it on for everybody to hear, one person was often listening to the program. And the radio stations were changing to feature more and more local news and information, general information, and music as opposed to dramatic programs. So Bill Paley and others have to try to figure this thing out. So they have this bright idea. The 5-day format was successful in many situations. In fact, for a little while, Mr. Keene had a serial and a half-hour show on the air at the same time, each with different storylines. Furman McGee had switched to 15 minutes. And what they were looking for was something that had a week-long story with 4 cliffhangers and 1 conclusion. So they were trying to figure out what series would be good. There was a Life with Luigi audition in that format. Rocky Jordan, a series called Captain Courage, which is a little bit like Voyage of the Scarlet Queen, what they were looking for there, and the family comedy My Son Jeep. So they developed this bright idea into a 60-minute block. So at 7:30 you'd have music and talk with Bing Crosby, then you'd get hard news with Ed Murrow, and then the family show, and then by 8:15 all the kiddies are to bed, right? So you'd have yours truly, Johnny Dollar. And if you've ever wondered why there's so much music at the end of Johnny Dollar, it's so at the end of the block, the local stations could announce what was coming next on their particular station. So that's why the music is so very, very long there. And they thought that this block, which ending at around 8:30 Eastern time, or ending whatever other time was done in the other time zones, people would then be able to go to television. So that they would have this with the understanding that most of the audience would be switching off after that, and hence the more local content for many of the stations. Now, John, they had a little difficulty picking the next Johnny Dollar, right?
Yeah, everybody thought, as we listen to it now, that Bob Bailey was a shoo-in. But that was not the case. They arranged for a 20-minute audition, which would be given to Jack Johnstone, the new director of the series. And as you can see, there are a lot of familiar names from radio. There are some other names of motion picture and stage actors. There's one name, like the 4th one down on the left. We remember him maybe, he was a baseball player. He ultimately didn't make the cut. Yes.
Sylvester J. Superman.
Yes.
Oh, that's really abstract.
And so
That's obscure.
the ultimate decision was, next slide please, drum roll, Johnny Dollar was Gerald Moore.
Yes, they actually picked him.
Yes. He gave an audition on August the 29th. It was reported in the media that Gerald Moore was going to be the next Johnny Dollar. The McCormick matter was recorded on September the 25th, 1955, with Bob Bailey as Johnny Dollar.
So you have the trade mags on the stand saying it's Gerald Moore, and meanwhile they're in the studio.
Yeah. But for some reason or another, Gerald Moore decided to turn down the role that he had been chosen for. Ultimately, I believe he ended up going to Europe and doing production work there. But it's interesting. If you listen to the Warco Diamond matter, there's a character named C.K. Barrett, the unmistakable voice of Gerald Moore. But at the end of the series, he's identified as C.K. Barrett. The script says Gerald Moore.
All right, we have this.
Yes, we have.
We have this supposedly rare. Well, it's not rare. We did. Go ahead.
From Hollywood, it's time now for
Johnny Dollar.
Hello, Johnny. It's Pat McCracken from Universal Adjustment Bureau, and I...
Oh, yeah, what now?
Oh, well, we need your help with a fraud case in Broken Neck, Arkansas, where this businessman...
You do realize that you're overdue paying my expense account. I mean, it's 60 days now.
I know, Johnny, and I'm sorry, but... Your renting the Goodyear blimp to go from Hartford to New Haven was a little bit...
Get this and get it straight. If you don't pay me, you'll end up in the gutter, the prison, or great... Hey, oh, sorry, I was thinking of something else. How does that one go? Danger is my stock in trade. If you got a job for me, George Valentine... No, that's some other actor. He'll never make it. Like I was saying, pay me. And hurry up. They're starting to call me Johnny Half Dollar.
Rambo knows who that is. That is Keith Scott from Australia. So, John, tell us that Bob Bailey is satisfactory.
Well, this is what the critics say. But, if you can't do, you become a critic. And he was reported as being an unknown, just as satisfactory as O'Brien in the role of Johnny Dollar. Well, he couldn't have been an unknown at this particular point in time. He had at least 300 episodes that had been done in Hollywood and in Chicago, where at one point in time he was working on 3 shows at the same time. There's an interview with Jack Johnstone that's available on Spurback. And it's interesting, at one point in time, Jack says that Edmund O'Brien called him. He wanted Bob Bailey's phone number. He wanted to call him and tell him what a fantastic job he was doing as Johnny Dollar. Much better than he would ever have been able to do. So saying he's just satisfactory, that just doesn't work.
And notice the critic threw John Lund under the bus, right? But not even mentioning his name, because Lund was in between O'Brien and Bailey, and I thought Lund did a pretty good job. There were a lot of things working against the series being good. And, there were big transitions going on in the industry, as we noted before. Radio ad dollars dropped by half in just 5 years since 1950. So what are the budgets going to be like for any kind of dramatic production? The number of radio stations doubled. And so these are generally smaller stations, again, focusing on local media and mainly on music. TV went up by a factor of 8 from 1950 to 1955. And so the question is, in this block of hour that they had at CBS, were they going to get anybody to bankroll it? And they basically could not. But the affiliates liked it because they could always sell time on it themselves. So the budgets were tighter, and a lot of radio's talent was being drawn to film and to TV. Tape recording had come into the marketplace and was starting to create an opportunity to record at times appropriate for either guest stars or for other talent. You do lose a sense of the spark and spontaneity of some of the live performances, and also the fun of the mistakes. And one of the bigger issues for a lot of the CBS shows was they switched to pre-recorded music. So they didn't have the orchestral accompaniment there and a lot of custom written musical bridges and the like, and a lot more canned sound effects. And so you didn't have a beginning to end production anymore. You had them recording segments and then assembling them together. That should have worked really against the series by a big margin. Jack Johnstone was one of the most talented people and most broadly experienced persons in the dramatic profession. And he had an idea of what would take to serialize these stories. He had written so many stories himself that he had a good plan for all of this, and he started to gather some of the top writing talent in the business. CBS also had Amerigo Marino, who was only 30 years old and would become a symphony conductor. He was with the Birmingham, Alabama Symphony Orchestra for 20-something years. And the selections that they had from the music library, much of which was recorded in Eastern Europe, I don't remember exactly what country it was, but that's where they were doing the recording because it would be less expensive to do that. He had control over the selection of the music. And even though it's canned and you hear the same thing over and over again, it's almost like the theme music is an important factor in moving the stories along. Because we know whenever we hear a particular thing, that we know, okay, we're coming up to the end, or Johnny is thinking, or a serious event is about to occur. So his selection there for that. So even though you hear them repeated many, many times, there's almost a comfort level to hearing them in each particular episode. The pre-recorded sound effects, some of them are definitely cheesy. So they had a combination of live sound effects and recorded sound effects. It didn't always work well, but we kind of forgive it because the series had so many other strong aspects to it. A key thing that they did was they recorded all the shows on Sundays, all 5 pieces on the same day. That really meant a lot. They started doing the afternoons, that later switched to late afternoon and into evening because all of these actors who were in demand for television and film and commercials and the like, they weren't working on Sunday. So they could still pursue all their other opportunities during the week and gather, many of them very, very close friends, and meet to do this particular series every week. So there's a long list here. He was nagging me last night, oh gee, you left out Howard McNear. Okay, well, you can get to him. Because in one of the shows, he was a very nasty person. This is not like him. Everybody loves Howard McNear. So how are they paid, John?
They were paid on a weekly basis, but they were not paid weekly dollar-wise. On the right-hand side here is a memo from CBS. It points out that on a weekly basis, Jack Johnstone was paid $300 a week, which is just over $2,000 a week in 2025 dollars. Bob Bailey, he was paid the same as Jack Johnstone was, $2,000 a week. The supporting actors paid approximately $1,000 a week at scale. Amerigo Marino, about $900.
It's interesting, inflation, because it says 75 on the sheet.
Yes.
So he's getting, that's equivalent to $900.
And we're not sure about the writers because they were paid under a separate contract. Although I do have a memo that back in the Lund series, Each one of the writers would get $300 a week for their script. I'm sure that with the encroachment of television and movies, they were probably getting a lot more, but we don't know.
The serial format has a lot of advantages. First one is more time. The writers can develop better and more intricate stories, and they could make the conclusion seem more uncertain, more time, as opposed to, there's some suspense where there's so few characters. I mean, you can't disperse the guilt enough. But in the Johnny Dollar series, you can. They also had the radio performers who had been working together for such a long time. They were able to be there for multiple episodes, of course. And one thing that's interesting and was done badly in so many series is that the recaps that occurred within Johnny Dollar with the story so far are never the story so far is, or we joined Johnny when. It's always in dialogue. And Johnny is always bringing another character up to date with what's been going on in a manner that is important to that particular character. But it's also a reminder for anybody who's listening or who missed an episode of what's been going on without being very overt. So it's very, very subtle. It's done incredibly well. Most series that were in serial format never did it this well. So this is likely an influence of Johnstone. I mean, he was working with good writers who could do it. But in smoothing this thing out, it's a lot better than the Mr. Keen ones, where you could have in the same scene, yes, Mr. Abbott is the killer. He's the expert on Johnny Dollar. And then I would say, oh, John Abbott, originally from Maryland, now in North Carolina, he's the killer? Isn't he an expert on Johnny Dollar? After a while, when you're listening to Mr. Keen, you feel like you're listening to Bob and Ray doing the Komodo Dragons thing. But that's not the case here. I mean, this is so wonderfully done.
That's called Hummerdizing.
Oh, gosh. If you want to listen to how badly it can work the other way, listen to the suspense story, The Curse of Kamishek. The 5-part version of that for Johnny Dollar is an amazing and extremely well-done story. And it's just pure schlock on suspense, with a tiny little piece of plot from the other.
One of the things that having a program every day for a week is if you had things come up. And this happened in 2 particular episodes. The Cranesburg matter was interrupted for the Republican National Convention on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So the question is, well, what are you going to do about Friday? They have a brilliant idea of, well, let's have a single episode on Monday or Friday and pick up the rest of the program on Monday, making it a 6-part episode. And that's what they did. Very successful. Later on, Adlai Stevenson had to give a speech because he was running for president, 2nd time?
Yes.
Against Eisenhower?
Yeah. Only bald men could run for president that year.
Yes. Hey, when are you going to run, Joe? So what they did there, they'd always wanted to do a 10-part series, so they broke it up. 4 parts one week, 5 parts the next week, making the 9-part Phantom Chase matter.
And they extricated episode 7 and spread it into 6 and 8.
Yes.
So they had some warning to do these things, but it's easy to imagine that they could be running a 5-day serial and then something tragic happens and the whole schedule just is affected by that. There's no John Dawson, okay? I know some of you will be disappointed by that because he seems to write everything. It's E. Jack Newman, one of the greatest radio mystery writers. He was doing a lot of television work and wanted it to be a little bit separate, so he used the name John Dawson here. He wrote 18 scripts, or did he? He took 14 scripts that he had already written and built them out into larger stories. He is a great writer, and Jeff Regan's series, which he did in 1948, is so crisply written, and it's so different than a lot of other things that you have. So he's kind of in the beginning of his career there. A lot of Jeff Regan scripts end up as Johnny Dollar. And this is a good chance to talk about recycling, because these are not recycled scripts. They're not even repurposed scripts. They're rebuilt scripts. So you have the foundation of a basic storyline, and then it becomes more complex. New characters, new reasons for those characters to be in the story and for their actions. You give them a totally different place where things are occurring. You have subplots that you couldn't explore before. You can make only imply. You can build more tension in the story by making it look like somebody may be guilty while they're really not later on, but you would have had to choose one person for a 30-minute show. So more suspects, more diversion, and most important to Johnny Dollar is more
expensive, of course.
Yes.
Okay, Les Crutchfield was another writer of the 5-part series. He contributed 17 scripts in total. 14 were new. 3 were adaptations of scripts that he had already written. Although he had written 52 scripts for Escape, including the infamous Shipment of Mute Fate, he wrote 81 Gunsmoke radio scripts. And in 1957 on TV, he created the character Festus. Very good writer, to the point that William N. Robeson says he was an exceptionally fine dramatist. His characters are sensitively developed and never plays a lack of quiet. And his plays never lack a quiet and warming sense of humor. His scripts are almost unique in the degree to which they visualize action to the listener.
And he was a very private person.
And very private.
There are no pictures of Les Crutchfield. There was a soldier in Vietnam who did some writing with the same name. So that's the picture that always comes up in Google Images. But he was a very private person, and you never see many references to him other than his work. Go ahead, John.
One of the things that writers are always taught is write what you know. Because you can make up all sorts of stuff and it'll never work, but if you know about something, you can write about it effectively. And half of Les Crutchfield's scripts involve the use of poisons, the use of chemicals, and the use of fire. How did he get that knowledge? Well, in his background, he was an explosives consultant for a mining company. Academically, he majored in chemistry, mathematics, and engineering. So, explosives figure highly in the Molly K matter and the Flight 6 matter. Fire in the Kalin matter, the Phantom 5 matter, and the Open Town matter. And poisoning in other forms of ingestion in the Cronin matter, the Laughing matter, the Lonely Hearts matter, and the Lorco Diamonds matter. All doing things that he knew about.
Maybe with his knowledge of poisons, he was private because nobody wanted to go to lunch with him.
Yeah, that's distinctly possible.
John tries to give me a long list of, oh, these are all poisoning, and at the bottom he says, oh, it's lead poisoning by a 38. So, no,
Well, if it stays in there long enough, it is. Other 5-part script writers, Jack Johnstone. He wrote 10 scripts. And Jack explained one time that the reason why he turned to writing scripts, all the good writers were running off and writing for television and writing in the movies. So if he was going to have a program, he had to write the scripts himself. Robert Reif wrote 7 scripts. He was an editor at CBS Radio. He worked on The Whistler, Escape, Dangerous Assignment. He was a freelance writer in the 50s, and later on, he taught writing at UCLA. Tony Barrett was a noted member of the CBS Radio Ensemble. He wrote 2 scripts, and Adrian Jandot, does anybody know who he is? Well, you had to look. Very highly regarded script writer for The Whistler, Dangerous Assignment on both radio and television. But he only wrote 1 script for Johnny Dollar.
Now, we may find as we get access to more scripts, there may be more repurposed scripts
Yes.
here. But we don't mind because they're implemented so incredibly well. Is this the...
Is that you or me? I can make up stuff as we go along.
This is me.
Oh,
Gosh,
okay.
I wish I had studied. I just made up the slides. I have no clue what's on them. You're supposed to laugh there, thank you. So why did it end? Well, the 60-minute the 60-minute block did not work. TV was just way too strong for this. So CBS realized there's a different place in the schedule, and that was Sunday afternoons. So they began to move a lot of their drama to Sunday afternoon and have it be finished by 7:30 at night, knowing that people would start watching TV in prime time. Now, I would listen to this lineup because these are all very, very good shows. I mean, CBS Radio Workshop was done 1 week in Hollywood, 1 week in New York. William N. Robeson and Paul Roberts, who would later become a producer of Suspense when it moved to New York. Suspense under Robeson, Indictment, which is unfortunately not appreciated series as much as it should be. Johnny Dollar there, the News, then FBI in Peace and War, which might be the weakest program on this list, but it has an incredibly long life in radio. Gunsmoke, and then Jack Benny. I mean, that's really quite a good lineup there.
And then shortly after Jack Benny on television, you had Ed Sullivan, the Toast to the Town.
Yeah. And the daytime soaps survived for another 4 years. So, what happened next? John?
Well, the next episode, the next part of the program was to go back and do the 30-minute, once-a-week format. It's very difficult to write a script on 5 parts when you're used to writing something in 30 minutes. So, with the shift back to the half hour, Jack Johnstone was picking up. He was writing a lot of the scripts. Bob Bailey starred with the program until 1960, when it moved to New York City. He opted not to move for various different reasons. Bob Reddick took the role. It lasted for, 6-7 months. And then Mandel Kramer picked up, and he carried the ball until the end of the program on September 30th, 1962. Jack Johnstone has the ignominious knowledge of, he wrote the last 2 drama shows on radio. He wrote for Suspense as Jonathan Bundy, or Jack Bundy, with the Devil's Gate matter.
Devilstone.
Devilstone, that's what it was. And then he wrote the last Johnny Dollar episode. And after those 2 programs aired, his daughter was interviewed one time and said, when those 2 shows went off the air, he turned off the radio and said, that's the end of the era, and he retired.
Which brings me to an interesting Suspense thing. There's an inside joke in Devilstone, since it's the end of that era, as they understood it at that time. Because otherwise, if I don't say that, Mr. Whitman's going to call me on the carpet. The last 3 words of Devilstone are "rest in peace" in Latin. Yeah. And we're trying to figure out if Devilstone is another inside joke on Johnstone. So, what happened to Bob Bailey? Go ahead, John. It's yours.
Bob Bailey had a secret that not a lot of people knew about. He had a problem with alcoholism, to the point that when he lost his role as Johnny Dollar, shortly thereafter he lost his 9-year-old son. In '62 he divorced his wife. He had trouble getting work because of the alcoholism. Disappeared for 10 years. Nobody knew where he went. Not even his family knew what happened to him. It turns out that he ended up in a rehab center in California, counseling others with alcohol addiction, but suffered a stroke in 1971.
John Dunning had a very popular show in Denver, where he would replay programs and give history, and he would also interview people. And one day he gets a phone call from a listener who says, "Gosh, I really like Johnny Dollar. I'd like to hear some more." And then he finds out it's Bob Bailey's daughter, and he interviews her in early 1982. And there's a link on the resource page to that interview, which is just absolutely fascinating. What was going on there, and he sent her shows and the like. And then John Dunning had a strong relationship with the folks at Spurback, and Chris Lambesis found, he was always hunting for people. He found Bailey and the home he was in, and they visited him for his 69th birthday, and they really made a very, very big deal about it. The cake said 70th because Chris was good at finding people. He wasn't good at arithmetic. So it had 70, and everybody got a big chuckle all over that. Bob was confined to a wheelchair, so this is 11 years, and nobody was ever visiting him, but Spurback went. And they made him an honorary member, and Bob Lines in Radiogram, this is the July 1982 Radiogram, he says, I'll read it because it's blurry up here, as president of Spurback, it was honored to speak for the group. He got down on one knee to look directly in Bob's eyes and tell him, Robert Bailey, we represent over 700 members of Spurback, and we are here today to wish you a very happy birthday and to tell you how much we love you and appreciate your work over the years. Well, Bailey was really touched by this, as were the people who were working in the facility too. And I kept trying to find a photograph, and I couldn't. And Barb Watkins, who was there on that day, she said, I know there was a photograph. I know there was a photograph. And they were looking through, Jerry Williams got involved, Spurback archivist. He was looking through all the issues. There was no photograph. And then Barb sends me a note. She says, Bob Lines found the picture. And here it is. So this picture has not seen the light of day for over 40 years.
Wow.
Starting on the left, that's John Gassman. And the back is Chris Lambesis. And in the middle is Barb Watkins, then Bob Lines, and then Larry Gassman. So they went to visit him on that day, June 13th. Another Spurback member who's not pictured here started visiting Bailey every week, and they would not talk about radio. They would just talk about stuff. And he really, really enjoyed those visits. And then a couple of them went up around Christmas and brought him books and things, and candies and all that. So Bailey only lived another 14 months from the first visit. But over that year, he got an incredible amount of love from the entire OTR community and the Spurback members for that. And because we're recording this, I'd appreciate giving them a round of applause for their work in finding. he was clearly forgotten. No one knew who he was. People were listening to their programs, and they really did a very class thing to do that. John, we're back to you.
So why is it so popular today? A couple of different reasons. We have improved continuity. Back when it was originally aired, you listened for 15 minutes on Monday, you listened to 15 minutes on Tuesday. And then you had to wait for the rest of the week to hear what happened. Now you can play these at your leisure. You can hear everything. You can do it to fit your circumstances. You can listen to all the subplots. You can listen to all the characterizations. You can listen to reinforced details that you probably would have never picked up if you listened to it once a day. So that's one of the reasons why it's so popular today.
How many of you listen to Johnny Dollar serials on your drive here? There we go. What's wrong with some of you?
Yeah, we're
I had a
taking notes.
6-hour drive. Well, I must have listened to at least 4 of them. And Phantom Chase is on the way home. That's what I'm doing. Yeah. Continue, sir.
The historical context enhances enjoyment. We look at awe at the accomplishment of the writers, the actors, the production. Yeah, there were some warts, but they had character. There is one episode, I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. It was Jack Johnstone. He took 2 different 30-minute programs, combined them to make a 5-part program. That takes skill. And the sound in this day and age is much better than it was what the listeners had listened to in the 50s. When I started working on this in like 2000, I bought a collection of CDs, and the sound was absolutely horrendous. You can get almost broadcast quality now on the 30-minute series, the 5-part series, everything. It's just immense the amount of enjoyment.
In some
you
ways,
get.
almost everything that we listen to is better than broadcast quality.
Yes.
Because we're listening to studio recordings. And when you listen to some air checks, you're getting station drift, noise. There's some Johnny Dollars that were recorded by Pat Rispoli of WROW. Thunderstorms are coming through. So you're picking that up in the air check. So we're really blessed to be around at this time when we actually know how to transfer discs and know how to process the programs. It's just marvelous.
And Joe and I were talking last night. It would be amazing what we could have had if they had personal computers and recording software back in the 50s. It would have been a world of difference.
The celebration for 70 years is going to start on October 3rd on the Yesterday USA Red Channel. Has nothing to do with I was a communist for the FBI.
Or NBC Red, I guess.
Yes.
Or Red and Blue States.
Yes. Starting at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 hours of serials. John and I recorded our intros to those serials last night. So that'll be on Yesterday USA. And we repeated on Monday, October 6th at 11 a.m. as well. So you get two chances to listen. And then, if 10 hours is not enough, you can get 10 days of Johnny Dollar serials on Conyers OTR. It will start just after the Yesterday USA completes at 9 o'clock on Friday, October 3rd, and will finish on October 12th.
Wow.
Streaming instructions are at the resource page. So that resource page is really quite good. And I'm not saying that because I did it.
There you are.
No, we got a lot of really good stuff in there, including that picture from the convalescent home and some of the background on that. We identified all the serials that were redone and give you all the episodes of Jeff Regan and Richard Diamond and Sam Spade and all that they were originally drawn from, so you can make the comparisons. There's the interview with Roberta Bailey Goodwin, and the links to these things. So it's worth going to. So do that again. See, it's bit.ly/mank-ytjd. So go do that, or send that email to suspenseotr@gmail.com, and we'll get it. So John will answer all the questions. I don't know how well.
In conclusion, yes.
Be careful of him.
Well, I know the legend. I know the legend of the show really well, but I'm one of those terrible people that hasn't actually heard much.
You should have just put a period after the word terrible.
Right down his name, he's not a listener.
So I wanted you two guys both to tell my wife and I a good starting serial. Where would you say, somebody that doesn't know the show well, would you start with Bailey's first, or would you pick this one to start with?
I would say you can't go wrong with a Bob Bailey.
Okay.
But you can't go wrong with a Charlie Russell. You can't go wrong with an Edmund O'Brien.
No, I love O'Brien.
He's asking about the cereal.
Yeah, I'm talking about
cereal?
He's asking about cereals because he's hungry right now.
I didn't have my grape nuts yet.
Start at the beginning.
Okay, that's fine.
Yes, start with McCormick.
You start with McCormick Manor, and then if you have the chance, as you go through those, check the resource page. Take the opportunity to go back and look at some of the originating scripts.
Sure.
And watch how they are developed. That's
Thanks.
the best way to do it.
There are certain serials that are never broadcast on Radio Classics because they're missing an episode. You have a resource, the Who is Johnny Dollar books, where John went to the actual scripts and summarized them. But also, there's not a single missing concluding segment. So you always get the end of the story, and because they're always recapping all the way through,
Gotcha.
maybe you should save your money and not buy John's book.
I'll never say that.
No, but that's a great service that he did for that, and also the late Stuart Wright.
Yes, Stuart Wright, some guy named Joe Webb, he helped me. A guy named Lamont Cranston, the Shadow, he helped me.
Yeah.
And right now, Joe has identified 3 new Johnny Dollar programs.
And you can download them from the resource page, which is really good because I made it.
Yeah. And Carl Shadow is working on 2 episodes, trying to track down what they were really named and what they're about. Once we get the information on those 2, we will have documented everything in the series.
That's neat. Give
Then
John a
I
round of
can
applause.
Again.
Don't give Carl Shadow a round of applause. It will go to his head.
But come see his show at 1 o'clock.
Yes, come see the show at 1 o'clock. What time is it now, by the way?
Not sure.
12:05.
12. We're running over.
Yes, question.
Couldn't be helped.
Oh, great.
That's what my wife says
Earlier
about
we were
me.
talking about Sirius XM. Probably should know this, but what is the connection between Radio Spirits and Sirius XM? And do you know how many available episodes there are? I mean, I've purchased many on CD, we've heard some. Like, how many are actually available versus how many are missing, roughly?
Yeah.
Okay. Radio Spirits provides all the programming to the Sirius XM channel in exchange for advertising time and other stuff. So that connection has always been there. But they're only going to release in CD or play on the air complete serials. So there's only 4 serials that are missing an episode. If you go to the resource page, which I created, you may able to see those particular episodes. So that's all. There's only 4 that aren't being played, and they're good. They're good stories. The 3 series that we found were because of the old-time radio researchers getting all these Pioneer Collector reels. These were recorded off the air by Ed Corcoran, who some of you know because he had a radio program in Hartford where he interviewed all kinds of folks.
Great interview show.
Yes, and all of those interviews are up online. Just look for Golden Age of Radio Ed Corcoran, and you'll find all those interviews. But he recorded them off the air off a CBS affiliate there. So there's 1 Bailey and 2 Manning Kramer. one of the many Kramers caused you to have to redo your entire log practically.
Oh, absolutely.
We're always getting new information for that stuff.
One of the problems with collectors back in the day is they knew there was a program, but they wasn't sure what it was. So they would take the next week tag from the preceding program and use that as the title for the next program. Well, that wasn't necessarily the case.
It was a teaser, it wasn't the title. So.
Yeah. Most logs will carry, what is the most terrible crime or something?
Oh, yeah, it's not worth going into because you've corrected it.
Yeah, I have corrected
good
it.
information.
The book has everything, my website has everything that you really need to know.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just going to say, somewhere in the vast resources of my memory, I thought Gerald Moore was up for a TV series in '53, and he was auditioning for a TV series. That could be the reason.
Yeah, but this would have been 1955.
Oh, 55.
Yeah, he hadn't moved to Europe yet. He was doing all kinds of stuff.
He was still doing a lot of stuff in the U.S., so,
Yeah.
but there was a TV series he was up for. I can't remember what it was. I don't think he got it.
Yeah.
But that might have been what happened.
Another thing I want to bring to your attention is on the resource page, which I created, as you haven't heard.
Did you
I
forget
heard
that,
that
Joe?
somewhere. I heard that.
There was a short TV series called Sam Benedict with Edmund O'Brien, and he was a Johnny Dollar, and Bob Bailey is in 3 of those episodes as a judge. So the links to those are on that page to YouTube, and Bailey's character usually appears after around the 30-minute mark. And so he would have been 50 years old, I think, in those episodes.
Looks 100, but
Yeah. So
unfortunately,
those are there. And John's website, and again the link is on the page. He has pictures of about more than half of Bailey's movie appearances.
yeah.
And TV appearances. So that's a good place to go.
And one of the travesties is that he had a one or 2 minute question in end of the Birdman of Alcatraz movie. They dubbed somebody else's voice.
That's show business.
Yeah. Oh well. Yes.
Yes, you mentioned that the hour-long CBS blog couldn't compete with TV, but I heard another theory regarding the Johnny Dollar 15-minute serial specifically, that a problem was people would listen for the first 4 nights, and then on Friday night it was on late enough that unlike an afternoon soap opera, a lot of people were going out to dinner, to movies. But have you heard that?
I'd always heard that's a problem inherent in any serialized thing. It's like going to the Saturday matinee for 10 cents and seeing Flash Gordon and missing episode 12.
Yeah.
There was never any doubt Flash was going to be okay, but still, you didn't see it. Why are you asking another question?
I'm offering something to this gentleman.
Okay.
Being a little bit younger and just missing the end of big radio, I spoke to Bill Nadell, who a lot of folks here know, William Nadell, and he was old enough that he was right in that crux decade where TV and radio were both still pretty active. And I said, well, which did you listen to? We hear that most people move. He said, oh, both. I'd watch Jack Benny on TV and I'd go listen to it on the radio. I'd smoke. So there was a little window there where people still kind of did both.
Yeah, definitely. Any other? Yes, a question over there.
You mentioned his daughter. How big was his family, and are there any surviving photos of members of his family?
There was an article, I think, TV Radio Week or something. I'll have to look for it, and I'll add that to the resource page, which
you created.
That was a very early picture of his daughter.
Yeah.
He had 2 sons, one of which had medical issues, and another one which was a drummer in a band for a while. His one son has died. His daughter has died, And I've never really been able to find anything about his other son.
Yeah, Roberta passed away in 2022.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. Thank you very, very much. And what are you going to listen to when you're headed home on your long trip?
Yours truly,